Ji-won Kim walked through the bright halls of the Council Research Center on Nexus Prime. The 19-year-old human student carried her datapad close to her chest. Her dark eyes were wide with excitement as she thought about her discovery. Other students in the xenobiology program called her crazy for spending so much time in the old archives. They preferred the new labs with their shiny equipment and holographic displays. But Ji-won loved digging through old files and forgotten records. Her professor always said the best discoveries came from looking where others had stopped looking. Today was different. Today she had found something that made her stomach feel cold and heavy. The file was buried deep in the medical research section. It was marked as Historical Data, Species Classification Studies. Most students would have skipped right past it. Ji-won almost did too. But something about the dates caught her eye. The studies went back 200 years, but they were still being updated. Inside the file were detailed records of biological experiments, brain tissue samples, neural pathway studies, memory extraction procedures. The test subjects were listed. By species, dozens of different alien races. All of them were marked as lesser species or primitive cultures. At first, Ji-won thought it was just old research from before the council became civilized. Every species had a dark past, right? Humans certainly did. But then she saw the recent entries, experiments from last month, last week, yesterday. The subjects were still alive when the procedures began. Ji-won's hands shook as she scrolled through the data. She recognized some of the species' names. The Veltar people who ran the small restaurant near her dormitory. The Kilani traders who sold beautiful crystals at the market. The file showed that council scientists had been taking members of these species for research purposes for decades. Then she found the human entries. 12 humans had disappeared over the past 5 years. The council had told Earth they were missing persons cases. Probably accidents or people who chose to leave civilization behind. But the files showed the truth. They had been taken. Their brains had been studied. Their memories had been copied and stored. The council was using humans and other species like lab animals. Ji-won saved the files to her personal datapad and ran back to her dormitory. She had to tell someone. Ambassador Hyuk Lee was Earth's representative to the council. He would know what to do. She sent a message to the ambassador's office requesting an urgent meeting. Then she packed the most important files onto a secure data chip. Her brother Minho had taught her basic security protocols when she left Earth. He was a captain in the Earth Defense Force and always worried about her safety. Never put all your data in one place, he had told her, and always have a backup plan. Ji-won created 3 copies of the files and hid them in different places in her room. Then she waited for the ambassador's reply. The answer came quickly. Ambassador Lee would see her tomorrow morning at his office. Ji-won felt relief wash over her. Soon this nightmare would be over. The ambassador would contact Earth, and Earth would demand answers from the council. But Ji-won was not the only one who had received a message that day. Deep in the Council Security Center, an automated system had flagged unusual activity in the research archives. Someone had been accessing classified files. The system identified the user as student Ji-won Kim, Human, Earth Exchange Program. High Arbiter Vorthak studied the security report with his crystalline eyes. The tall, translucent being had led the Council's internal security division for over a century. He had dealt with curious students before. Usually, a simple memory adjustment was enough to solve the problem. But this case was different. The files the human had accessed contained some of the Council's most important secrets. The Neural Enhancement Program had been running for 300 years. It was how the Council members had become so much smarter and longer lived than other species. Without the program, they would be just another group of moderately intelligent aliens. The program could not be exposed. Too much depended on it. Vorthak reviewed the humans' academic records. Ji-won Kim was An excellent student with high marks in xenobiology and data analysis. She was exactly the kind of person who would understand what she had found. She was also exactly the kind of person who would not stay quiet about it. The High Arbiter made his decision. The next morning, Ji-won woke up early and dressed carefully for her meeting with Ambassador Lee. She put the data chip in a hidden pocket of her jacket and made her way across the city to the diplomatic quarter. She never made it to the embassy. Council. Security agents intercepted her 3 blocks away from the ambassador's office. They were polite but firm. There had been a technical issue with some of the research equipment, they explained. All students who had worked in the archives recently needed to return to the center for safety checks. Ji-won tried to protest, but the agents insisted. They escorted her back to the research center and led her to a laboratory she had never seen before. The room was filled with strange machines and monitoring equipment. "Just a quick scan," one of the agents said, "to make sure you were not exposed to any harmful radiation from the faulty equipment." Ji-won stepped into the scanning chamber. The last thing she remembered was a bright flash of light. The explosion that destroyed Laboratory 7 was visible from across the city. The official report blamed a malfunction in the quantum containment system. These accidents happen sometimes when working with dangerous alien technology. Very sad, but not uncommon. Student Ji-won Kim had been in the laboratory when the accident occurred. Her body was never found, but this was normal for quantum containment failures. The intense energy fields left nothing behind. Ambassador Hyuk Lee received the news 6 hours later. He was devastated. Ji-won had been one of the brightest students in the exchange program. Her death was a terrible loss. The council offered their deepest condolences and a standard compensation payment to Ji-won's family. These tragedies were part of life in a universe filled with dangerous technologies. At least she had died quickly, they said. She probably never felt any pain. On Earth, Captain Minho Park received the worst news of his life. His little sister was dead. The message was brief and official. An accident, a malfunction. No one to blame. But Minho knew his sister better than anyone. Ji-won was careful and smart. She did not take unnecessary risks. She followed safety protocols, better than most military personnel. Something was wrong with this story, and Captain Park intended to find out what. Captain Minho Park stared at the official report for the 100th time. The words had not changed, but they still made no sense. His sister Ji-won had always been the careful one in their family. Even as a child, she would read instruction manuals, twice before using any new device. The idea that she had caused a laboratory accident was impossible. Minho had requested permission to travel to Nexus Prime to investigate. His commanding officer had refused. "The council has already conducted a full investigation," Colonel Dae-hyun-oh had said. "There is nothing more to discover. Accept the compensation and honor your sister's memory." But Minho could not accept it. He took emergency leave and used his own money to book passage on a civilian transport to Nexus Prime. If the military would not help him find the truth, he would find it himself. The journey took 3 weeks. During that time, Minho contacted everyone he could think of who might help him. Most of his old friends from military academy were sympathetic, but could do nothing. Then he remembered Dr. Yuna Seo. Yuna had been a brilliant intelligence officer before she left the military. She was now working as a civilian data analyst, but Minho knew she still had connections in the intelligence community. More importantly, she had never liked taking no for an answer. Minho sent her an encrypted message explaining the situation. Her reply came back within hours. "Meet me on Nexus Prime. I will bring tools." When Minho arrived on the Council's capital world, Yuna was waiting for him at the spaceport. She looked exactly the same as she had 5 years ago. Short black hair, sharp eyes, and the kind of smile that meant she was planning something dangerous. "I have already started looking into your sister's case," she said as they walked through. the crowded terminal. The official story has several problems. They took a taxi to a small hotel in the diplomatic quarter. Yuna had rented a room under a false name and filled it with electronic equipment that Minho did not recognize. "This is all illegal, is it not?" he asked. "Completely," Yuna replied cheerfully. "But your sister deserves the truth." Over the next 3 days, Yuna worked her magic on the Council's computer networks. She used quantum encryption techniques that the Council had never seen before. Humans had developed them in secret over the past decade, preparing for the day when they might need to protect their communications from alien intelligence services. "The Council's security is impressive," Yuna admitted as she worked. "But they are protecting against known threats. They have never seen anything like this before." Slowly, she began to penetrate the Council's data systems. First, she accessed the public records about Jiwan's death. Then she dug deeper into the restricted files about the laboratory accident. Finally, she found what they were looking for. "Minho," she said quietly, "you need to see this." The security footage from Laboratory 7 told a very different story than the official report. Jiwan had not been conducting an experiment when she died. She had been brought to the laboratory by Council security agents. The footage showed her being forced into a scanning chamber against her will. Then the recording jumped forward 30 minutes. When it resumed, the laboratory was empty, except for several technicians in protective suits. They were setting up some kind of device near the quantum containment system. "They killed her," Minho said. His voice was flat and cold. "They murdered my sister and made it look like an accident." "It gets worse," Yuna said. She had been following data trails through the Council's networks while they watched the security footage. "Look at this." The files she had found were far more extensive than anything Jiwan could have discovered. Detailed records of experiments on hundreds of different species, brain tissue harvesting operations, memory extraction procedures, neural enhancement programs that had been running for centuries. The Council had been treating other species like laboratory animals for longer than humans had known about space travel. "This is what your sister found," Yuna said. "This is why they killed her." Minho studied the files with growing horror. Humans were specifically mentioned as having exceptional neural plasticity that made them valuable test subjects. 12 humans had disappeared over the past 5 years. All of them had been taken for these experiments. "We have to tell Earth," Minho said. "I already have," Yuna replied. "I sent everything to Admiral Soman Choi through encrypted channels. She should have received it 6 hours ago." Admiral Choi was the Supreme Commander of Earth's military forces. She was also one of the few people who knew about humanity's secret preparations for exactly this kind of situation. For 30 years, Earth had been playing the role of a grateful junior member of the Galactic Council. They had accepted their position as a primitive species that was lucky to be included in galactic civilization. They had followed Council laws and paid Council taxes and sent their brightest students to Council schools. But they had also been preparing. The merchant ships that traveled between Earth and other worlds carried more than trade goods. The research stations that humans had built throughout Council space were more than scientific outposts. The cultural exchange programs that sent humans to live among alien species were more than diplomatic initiatives. Everything was connected. Everything was part of a plan that had been decades in the making. Admiral Choi had been waiting for this day since she was a young officer. She had always known that humanity's peaceful relationship with the Council was temporary. Sooner or later, the other species would show their true nature. They would make the mistake of harming humans in a way that could not be ignored or forgiven. The murder of Jiwon Kim was that mistake. Within hours of receiving Yuna's data, Admiral Choi activated secret protocols that had been in place for 20 years. Coded messages went out to every human ship captain, station commander, and diplomatic officer in Council space. The messages were simple. Condition black. Prepare for revelation. Remember your true mission. Commander Yunbi Han received her message while commanding a research vessel in the Outer Rim. Her ship, the Peaceful Explorer, was officially studying gravitational anomalies. In reality, it was one of the most advanced warships in the galaxy, disguised as a harmless science vessel. Captain Bo Young-shin got her orders while supervising a trading post near the Council border. The station appeared to be a simple commercial facility. Hidden beneath its outer hull were enough weapons to destroy a small fleet. All across Council space, humans began to prepare for something the galaxy had never seen before. Not a war, exactly. Something more precise, something more final. Back on Nexus Prime, Minho and Yuna continued their investigation. They had found the truth about Jiwon's death, but they knew it was only the beginning. The files they had discovered contained evidence of crimes that stretched back centuries. "What happens now?" Minho asked. Yuna was quiet for a long moment. She had been receiving her own coded messages from Earth. Messages that told her things were about to change in ways the Council could never imagine. "Now we wait," she said finally, "and we document everything we can find. When this is over, the galaxy will need to know the full truth about what the Council has been doing." When what is over? Yuna smiled, and for the first time since Minho had known her, it was not a pleasant expression. "Justice," she said. "For your sister. For all of them." Admiral So-min Choi stood in the most secret room on Earth. The command center was buried 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean, hidden from every form of detection the Council possessed. Around her, dozens of officers worked at stations that monitored human activities across the galaxy. For 30 years, this room had been preparing for a single moment. That moment had finally arrived. "Status report," Admiral Choi said to General Taehyung Lim, the head of Earth's secret military. "Development. All assets are in position," General Lim replied. "We have confirmed contact with 4,732 hidden installations throughout Council space. Every sleeper agent has acknowledged receipt of activation orders." Admiral Choi nodded. The numbers were even better than she had hoped. When Earth first joined the Council, they had immediately begun their secret expansion program. Every human who traveled to alien worlds had a secondary mission. Some were soldiers disguised as merchants. Others were engineers disguised as students. All of them were building the infrastructure humanity would need if this day ever came. "What about the Prometheus project?" Admiral Choi asked. Dr. Ji-hoon Kang looked up from his workstation. The lead scientist was a small, quiet man who looked more like a librarian than the creator of the most advanced weapon in galactic history. "The delivery system is fully operational," Dr. Kang said. "We can target any species with genetic specificity down to individual bloodlines. The quantum distribution network Dr. SEO established gives us access to every major population center in Council space." The Prometheus project had been Dr. Kang's life work. Unlike the crude biological weapons other species had developed, this was precision engineering at the molecular level. It could distinguish between different alien races with perfect accuracy while leaving humans completely untouched. More importantly, it could target specific genetic markers that appeared only in certain family lines or social castes. The Council's leadership came from ancient bloodlines that had ruled for thousands of years. Those bloodlines had unique genetic signatures that made them perfect targets. "And our fleet status?" Admiral Choi asked. Captain Bo Young-shin stepped forward. She had arrived on Earth just 6 hours ago, leaving her trading post under the command of her second officer. Her real rank was Fleet Admiral, and she commanded one of the largest naval forces in the galaxy. "We have 8,400 ships ready for immediate deployment," Captain Shin reported. "Another 12,000 can be activated within 72 hours. All vessels are equipped with quantum drive systems and gravitational warfare capabilities." Admiral Choi smiled grimly. The Council thought humanity's fleet consisted of a few hundred outdated vessels that Earth used for local defense and trade. They had no idea that every human merchant ship was actually a disguised warship. They did not know about the secret shipyards hidden in asteroid fields and nebulae throughout the galaxy. Most importantly, they did not understand that humanity's technology had advanced far beyond anything the Council possessed. While the aliens had grown comfortable with their ancient advantages, humans had been innovating and improving every year. "What about our intelligence networks?" Admiral Choi asked. Agent Won-ho Kim had been waiting patiently for his turn to report. For 5 years, he had worked as a janitor in the Council's government buildings on Nexus Prime. He cleaned their floors and emptied their trash and listened to their conversations. No one ever noticed the quiet human who kept their offices spotless. Complete. Penetration of all major Council facilities, Agent Kim reported. "We have operatives in every government building, military base, and research center. They think of us as servants and workers, so they never watch what they say around us." This had been one of humanity's greatest advantages. The Council saw humans as a primitive species that was useful for manual labor and simple tasks. They had gladly accepted human workers for jobs that other species considered beneath them. They never realized that every human janitor, cook, and maintenance worker was trained in intelligence gathering and sabotage. "And our population numbers?" Admiral Choi asked Commander Seo-young Park, who handled civilian coordination. 53 billion humans across 412 hidden colonies, Commander Park reported. "The Council believes our total population is 8 billion, all on Earth. They have no knowledge of our expansion into uncharted systems." This was perhaps humanity's greatest secret. While officially remaining within the boundaries, the Council had set for them, humans had secretly been exploring and colonizing star systems that the aliens had never discovered. Hidden colonies throughout the galaxy were producing ships, weapons, and trained personnel. The Council thought they were dealing with a single planet of primitive humans. They were actually facing an interstellar civilization that had been preparing for war for 3 decades. Dr. Minseo Jeon, the psychological warfare specialist, raised her hand. "Admiral, I have a question about our response parameters. The evidence of Council crimes is extensive enough to justify complete elimination of their leadership structure. But what about their civilian populations?" This was the question Admiral Choi had been wrestling with since receiving the files about Ji-won Kim's murder. The Council's crimes were horrific, and their leaders deserved everything that was coming to them. But most of the alien civilians were innocent. They had no knowledge of the experiments and atrocities their governments had committed. "We will target only those directly responsible," Admiral Choi decided. "Leadership castes, military commanders, and research personnel involved in the illegal programs. Civilian populations will be spared." Dr. Kang nodded approvingly. "The Prometheus system can be calibrated for those specific targets. We can eliminate the guilty while leaving the innocent untouched." "Good," Admiral Choi said. "We are not monsters. We are delivering justice, not committing genocide." She turned to address the entire room. "For 30 years, we have prepared for this moment. We have built our strength in secret while the Council believed us to be weak and primitive. They have made the mistake of underestimating humanity. More importantly, they made the mistake of murdering an innocent human girl." The room was completely silent. Every person present had seen the footage of Ji-won Kim's death. Every person present understood that this was about more than revenge. This was about ensuring that no other species would ever again be treated as laboratory animals by the Council. "The operation will begin in 72 hours, Admiral Choi announced. "Dr. Kang, begin final preparations for Prometheus deployment. Captain Shin, position your fleets for maximum psychological impact. We want them to understand the scope of their mistake before the end comes." "What about our people on Council worlds?" Agent Kim asked. "Some of them have built lives there. They have alien friends and colleagues who will be caught in the chaos. Evacuation protocols are already in motion," Commander Park replied. Every human civilian will be offered passage back to our territory. Those who choose to remain will be provided with protection. Admiral Choi looked around the room one more time. These people had dedicated their lives to preparing for a war they had hoped would never come. Now that war was finally here, she felt both sadness and determination. "Remember," she said, "we did not choose this path. We offered the Council friendship and cooperation. We followed their laws and respected their authority. But they chose to see us as victims instead of partners. They chose to murder our children for the crime of asking questions." She paused, thinking of a young woman she had never met but whose death was about to change the galaxy forever. Ji-won Kim died because she discovered the truth about Council crimes. Her brother, Captain Park, has provided us with evidence of those crimes. Dr. Seo has given us the intelligence we need to act on that evidence. Now it is time to ensure that Ji-won's death has meaning. General Lim stepped forward. "What should we tell our people? Many of them will be frightened when they see what we are capable of." "Tell them the truth," Admiral Choi said. "Tell them that humanity has been strong all along. We simply chose to hide that strength until we had no other choice. Tell them that we go to war not for conquest or glory, but to ensure that no innocent person ever again suffers what Ji-won Kim suffered." The meeting dispersed, and officers hurried to their tasks. In 72 hours, the galaxy would discover that humanity was not the primitive species the Council had believed them to be. The aliens would learn that their victims had been preparing for this day for 30 years. Most importantly, they would learn that there are some lines that should never be crossed, and murdering a human girl for asking questions was definitely one of them. Admiral Soman Choi walked into the Council chamber on Nexus Prime like she owned the place. The massive room was designed to make visitors feel small and intimidated. Crystalline spires reached toward a domed ceiling that showed holographic images of the Council's greatest achievements. 12 elevated platforms held the ruling representatives of the galaxy's most powerful species. Admiral Choi was not intimidated. She wore a simple black uniform with no decorations except for a small pin, showing Earth's blue and green colors. Behind her walked two aides, Captain Minho Park and Dr. Yuna Seo. They carried briefcases filled with evidence that would change everything. High Arbiter Vorthak looked down at the human delegation with barely concealed contempt. The crystalline being had agreed to this emergency session only because Earth had threatened to withdraw from several trade agreements. He expected the usual human complaints about unfair treatment or requests for better trading terms. He was about to get something very different. "Honored Council members," Admiral Choi began in a calm, clear voice, "I come before you today to demand justice for the murder of Ji-won Kim." A ripple of confusion went through the chamber. High Arbiter Vorthak's crystalline features shifted into what might have been a frown. "The death of student Kim was a tragic accident," Vorthak said. "The Council has already provided compensation and expressed our condolences. There is nothing more to discuss." "There is everything to discuss," Admiral Choi replied. She nodded to Dr. Seo, who activated a holographic projector. The security footage from Laboratory 7 filled the air above the chamber floor. Every Council member could see Ji-won Kim being forced into the scanning chamber. They could see the technicians setting up the device that would cause the accident. They could see the cold, calculated murder of an innocent human girl. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Several of the smaller Council members looked genuinely horrified, but Vorthak simply waited for the images to end. "Impressive fabrication," he said calmly. "Human computer technology has clearly advanced beyond our expectations, but manufactured evidence proves nothing." Captain Park stepped forward. His face was stone cold with controlled rage. "The evidence is real. My sister was murdered because she discovered your illegal experiments on sentient beings. Your sister was an unfortunate casualty of important research," Vorthak replied. The Council's neural enhancement programs have brought peace and prosperity to the galaxy for centuries. The sacrifice of a few primitive individuals is a small price to pay for such benefits. Admiral Choi smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Thank you for that confession, High Arbiter. You have just admitted to the systematic murder and torture of sentient beings. She gestured to Dr. Seo again. This time, the holographic display showed the complete files from the Council's research programs. Hundreds of species, thousands of victims, centuries of crimes. We demand the immediate surrender of all Council members involved in these programs, Admiral Choi said. We demand the termination of all illegal research, and we demand that Earth be given oversight authority to ensure these atrocities never happen again. The chamber fell silent. Then High Arbiter Vorthak began to laugh. It was a sound like breaking glass. Demands? He said. You are a primitive species that exists only because we allow it. You control a single world and a handful of outdated ships. What possible threat could you pose to the Council? Other Council members joined in the laughter. The idea that humans could threaten them was apparently hilarious. Admiral Choi's expression did not change. I was hoping you would see reason, but I came prepared for this response as well. She activated her personal communicator. Agent Kim, please proceed with the demonstration. 5 years of working as a janitor had given Wonho Kim access to every part of the Council's government complex. He had used that access to plant quantum beacons in strategic locations throughout the building. Now, with a single command from his hidden position, he activated all of them simultaneously. The effect was immediate and terrifying. Every electronic system in the Council chamber shut down. The lights went out. The gravity generators failed. The air recycling systems stopped working. Emergency power tried to activate and failed as well. In the darkness, Admiral Choi's voice was perfectly calm. This is just one building, High Arbiter. We can do this to every Council facility in the galaxy. Emergency lighting finally activated, casting eerie shadows across the chamber. The Council members were no longer laughing. Impossible, Vorthak whispered. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Our official technology, perhaps, Admiral Choi said, but we have been busy for the past 30 years. She activated another device, and holographic displays showed images from across the galaxy. Council fleet bases where human workers were revealing advanced weapons systems. Research stations where human students were taking control of critical systems. Government buildings where human janitors were locking down security networks. Every human in Council space has a secondary mission, Admiral Choi explained. We have been preparing for this day since we first joined your organization. The images kept coming. Massive fleets of ships decloaking near every major Council world. Weapons platforms emerging from what had appeared to be harmless asteroids. Hidden colonies revealing themselves to be fully operational military bases. 50 billion humans across 400 hidden worlds, Admiral Choi continued. 8,000 warships equipped with technology you have never seen. Complete infiltration of every Council facility, and the ability to target your leadership with genetic precision while leaving your civilian populations unharmed. High Arbiter Vorthak was no longer laughing. His crystalline body was actually shaking. This is impossible, he repeated. We would have detected such activities. You detected exactly what we wanted you to detect, Admiral Choi said. You saw a primitive species grateful for inclusion in galactic civilization. You never looked deeper because you never believed we were capable of more. She gestured to the holographic displays again. This time they showed the Council's own communications networks. Every message, every secret file, every classified document was now under human control. We know everything about your crimes, Admiral Choi said. We have evidence that will convince every species in the galaxy that the Council is a criminal organization that must be stopped. Dr. Minseo John had been busy during the past 3 days. Her psychological warfare campaign was already bearing fruit. Across the galaxy, species that had lost people to council experiments were receiving detailed evidence of what had happened to their loved ones. The reactions were exactly what she had predicted. Riots on 12 worlds, fleets declaring independence from council authority, entire species demanding answers about their missing people. Your empire is collapsing as we speak, Admiral Choi informed the terrified council members. Your own subjects are turning against you as they learn the truth about your crimes. Ambassador Jae-hwan Song stepped forward. He was a quiet, scholarly man who had been Ji-won Kim's academic advisor. His presence was a deliberate reminder of why they were all here. The terms are simple, Ambassador Song said in a soft voice. Immediate surrender of all council leadership involved in illegal experimentation. Complete cessation of all research programs targeting sentient beings. Dissolution of the current council structure and establishment of new galactic governance under human oversight. And if we refuse? Vorthak asked, though his voice had lost all of its earlier arrogance. Admiral Choi's smile was cold as space. Then we stop being precise about our targets. The threat was clear. Humanity had the power to eliminate the council leadership with surgical precision, but they also had the power to do much more if they chose to abandon restraint. You have 24 hours to decide, Admiral Choi said. Surrender and face justice for your crimes, or be removed by force. Either way, the Council's reign of terror ends today. She turned and walked toward the chamber exit. Captain Park and Dr. Seo followed her. Ambassador Song paused at the doorway and looked back at the council members. Ji-won Kim was 19 years old, he said quietly. She wanted to study alien biology because she believed that different species could learn from each other. She thought the universe was a place where knowledge and cooperation could solve any problem. He paused, letting his words sink in. You killed her for asking questions. That was your mistake. Not because she was human, but because she was right. The universe should be a place where curiosity is rewarded, not punished. Where young people can seek knowledge without fear. Ambassador Song looked directly at High Arbiter Vorthak. You have 24 hours to prove that you understand this. If you do not, humanity will teach the lesson for you. Then he was gone, leaving the council alone with their fear and the weight of centuries of crimes. Outside the chamber, Admiral Choi activated her communicator again. All units, this is Admiral Choi. The ultimatum has been delivered. Maintain positions and prepare for final phase implementation. Across the galaxy, 50 billion humans received the message. The greatest military operation in galactic history was about to begin, and it had all started with one young woman who had asked the wrong questions of the wrong people. 23 hours and 57 minutes after Admiral Choi's ultimatum, High Arbiter Vorthak sent his response. It was exactly what everyone had expected. The Council does not negotiate with primitive species, the message read. Human threats are meaningless. The galaxy belongs to those strong enough to rule it. Admiral Choi read the message while standing in the command center of her flagship, the Eternal Vigilance. The massive vessel had been disguised as a deep space research station for 15 years. Now it floated in space above Nexus Prime, its weapon systems active and targeting arrays locked onto the Council's government complex. Around her, Fleet Admiral Kyujin Ro coordinated the largest military operation in galactic history. Screens showed the positions of human fleets throughout Council space. Every major world was surrounded. Every military base was targeted. Every escape route was blocked. But this was not going to be a traditional war. Dr. Kang, Admiral Choi, said. Begin Prometheus deployment. Dr. Jihoon Kang activated the quantum distribution network that Dr. Yuna Seo had spent 3 years building. Hidden transmitters in every major population center began broadcasting a signal that was invisible to normal sensors. The signal carried something that had never existed before, a weapon that could read genetic codes and choose its targets with perfect precision. The Prometheus virus was not like any biological weapon the galaxy had ever seen. It was a molecular machine designed to interact with specific genetic markers. Those markers appeared only in the bloodlines of council leadership families, genetic signatures that had been carefully mapped and cataloged over decades of secret intelligence gathering. Within 6 hours, every High Arbiter, Supreme Commander, Grand Inquisitor, and Senior Counselor in the galaxy simply stopped existing. They did not die violently or painfully. They simply ceased to be, as if they had never been born. Their civilian populations were completely unaffected. The virus ignored every genetic marker except those that identified the Council's ruling class. Children playing in the streets continued to play. Workers in the fields continued to work. Students in schools continued to learn. But the leaders who had ordered the torture and murder of innocent beings were gone forever. The effect on galactic civilization was immediate and profound. Without their leaders, the Council's military forces found themselves without orders or direction. Some tried to fight, but they discovered that every human worker and student in their facilities was actually a highly trained soldier with access to weapons they had never seen before. Captain Boyoung Shin's fleet revealed itself near the Council's primary military base at Kepler Station. What had appeared to be a small convoy of merchant ships suddenly became a battle fleet of 200 advanced warships. The station's defenders surrendered without firing a shot. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Human forces emerged from hiding and took control of key installations with minimal violence. The Council's subjects, many of whom had been planning rebellions for years, welcomed their liberators with celebration rather than resistance. On Nexus Prime, Agent Wanho, Kim walked out of the government complex where he had worked as a janitor for 5 years. He was now wearing the uniform of a human intelligence officer, and he carried authorization codes that gave him access to every classified file in the building. The truth about the Council's crimes was about to become public knowledge. Ambassador Jae-hwan Song stood in the same chamber where Admiral Choi had delivered her ultimatum the day before. But now he was addressing a very different audience. Representatives from dozens of species had gathered to hear humanity's proposal for new galactic governance. "The Council is gone," Ambassador Song announced. "Their crimes have been exposed and their leaders have been removed. But destruction was never our goal. We seek to build something better." He activated a holographic display that showed the proposed structure for a new galactic confederation. Unlike the Council's authoritarian system, this would be based on equality and cooperation between species. "Every species will have equal representation," Song explained. "Decisions will be made through democratic processes rather than decree. And most importantly, there will be strict oversight to prevent the kind of atrocities the Council committed." Specialist Yeren Nam, the youngest member of the Prometheus team, had been given the honor of activating the memorial beacon. At exactly noon, Nexus Prime time, a new structure appeared in the planet's capital square. The memorial was not built from stone or metal. Instead, it was constructed from quantum light that formed solid, permanent images in the air. At its center was a holographic statue of Ji-won Kim, captured in a moment of curiosity as she examined an alien artifact. Around the statue, the names of every known victim of Council experiments appeared and disappeared in a slow, endless cycle. Thousands of names from dozens of species, each one representing a life cut short for the advancement of their oppressor's knowledge. Below the memorial, a simple plaque bore the words, "She asked questions." That should never be a death sentence. Yeren Nam placed the first flower at the base of the memorial. She was the same age Ji-won would have been if she had lived. Behind her, Captain Minho Park stood with tears in his eyes as he watched beings from across the galaxy come forward to honor his sister's memory. Dr. Yuna Seo had been given a different task. She was working with teams of human specialists to preserve and catalog every piece of evidence about the Council's crimes. The full truth would be made available to every species in the galaxy. No one would ever again be able to claim ignorance about what had happened. Justice is not just about punishment, she explained to a gathering of galactic historians. It is about ensuring that these crimes are remembered and never repeated. The process of rebuilding galactic civilization would take years. New governments had to be established. New laws had to be written. New relationships had to be built between species that had been enemies or strangers for centuries, but the foundation was solid. For the first time in galactic history, the most powerful species was using its strength to protect others rather than exploit them. Humanity had proven that power could be used for justice rather than domination. Fleet Admiral Kyujin Ro addressed his officers as the human fleets began to disperse to their new peacekeeping assignments. "We did not seek this responsibility," he said, "but we have accepted it. We will use our strength to ensure that no species ever again suffers what the Council's victims endured." The ships departed Nexus Prime slowly, their crews understanding that they were not conquerors, but guardians. They would patrol the galaxy not to enforce human rule, but to protect the weak from the strong. On Earth, Admiral Somin Choi stood in the same secret command center where the operation had begun. But now the screens showed a very different galaxy. Trade was resuming between species that had been isolated for centuries. Scientific cooperation was replacing the Council's secretive research programs. Children from dozens of worlds were learning about other species through cultural exchange programs that were based on genuine friendship rather than political calculation. "Status report," Admiral Choi said to her staff. "Galactic Peace Index is at historical highs," reported Commander Seo-Young Park. "No major conflicts detected anywhere in monitored space. The new Confederation government is functioning smoothly. Economic indicators are positive across all sectors," added General Taehyung Lim. "Species that were exploited under the Council system are experiencing rapid development with human technical assistance." "And the memorial?" Admiral Choi asked. Dr. Minseo Jeon smiled. "Visited by over 10 million beings in the first week. It has become a symbol of hope rather than tragedy. Students from across the galaxy are studying there, asking questions and seeking knowledge without fear." Admiral Choi nodded with satisfaction. This was what Ji-won Kim would have wanted, a galaxy where curiosity was celebrated rather than punished, where young people could explore and learn and dream without wondering if their questions would make them targets. The girl who had died for asking questions had become the inspiration for a new age of galactic civilization. Her murder had revealed the Council's true nature and given humanity the justification it needed to act. Her memory would ensure that such atrocities never happened again. "Final report?" Admiral Choi asked. Ambassador Song's voice came through the communication system from Nexus Prime. "The new galactic charter has been signed by representatives of 47 species. The age of the Council is officially over. The age of cooperation has begun." Admiral Choi looked around the command center one last time. These people had dedicated their lives to preparing for a war they had hoped would never come. Now that war was over, and they had won something far greater than victory. They had won the chance to build a better galaxy. "Mission accomplished," she said quietly. "Ji-won Kim, wherever you are, know that your questions have been answered, and they will never be silenced again." Outside, Earth's sun was setting over the Pacific Ocean, but across the galaxy, a new day was beginning. A day when asking questions was not a crime, but a celebration of the curiosity that drives all intelligent life toward a better future. Humanity had not just retaliated against the Council's crimes.